The rematch we've all been waiting for. Big Ank looks to end the controversy and defend his title against the fan favorite Alex Poatan Pereira in the main event for UFC 320. In the co-main event, we got Merab Dvalishvili, who looks unbeatable at this point. He gets a fresh face in Corey Sandhagen, which I like to see. The Sean O'Malley rematch wasn't exactly the fight that I really wanted to see. I love to see how Corey Sandhagen will approach this fight with Merab, who, like I said, just looks unbeatable at this point, but we got to remember, everyone is beatable. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card on UFC 320. I'm going to give you my early lean, my early breakdown, basically what we know about these fighters, my first thoughts about it before I dive into the tape and really analyze all the statistics, all the matchups, look at the film, see if there's anything that I'm missing, and then I'll make my final conclusions later on in the week. But I am filming this before UFC Perth, so we won't be able to recap how UFC Perth went. But we did cash in a little bit on the Contender Series this week, so we're now positive 73.31 units on the year as far as the premium bets go in the Home of Fight Picks Winnable. That's where you're going to get every single one of my bets every single week. There's a link down in the description below. You could sign up with code HeyJive and get you a 5-day free trial. But since there's nothing to recap with UFC Perth, that means we can hop right into the fights. And of course, we get slapped with a low-level women's MMA fight to start the night. First fight of the night, early prelim. Veronica Hardy comes in here as a massive favorite against Brogan Walker. And Brogan Walker, I didn't even know that she was still on the roster. She's 0-2. I thought she might have been cut or she might have just hung it up because she's 36. And she had the run on The Ultimate Fighter. She lost The Ultimate Fighter finale. And, she lost to Yasmin Lucindo after that. And it's clear this girl's not going to make any type of noise in the UFC. And Veronica Hardy, on the other hand, coming off the loss, where she didn't look terrible, but she's 4-5 in the UFC. She was on a nice three-fight winning streak, but then she took another loss, and now she kind of needs a bounce-back spot, and it looks like they're trying to give it to her. Because Veronica Hardy at 125 is always going to be a little bit undersized, but she is fast, and she's a pretty girl. She's probably marketable. She does a ton of work as far as desk work for other promotions and stuff. So she's a marketable girl that I think they want to keep around. She's still young enough as well, 29 years of age, that they probably want to get her back on the winning track so they can get her, some more back in the picture of moving up the rankings is what I'm trying to say. Veronica Hardy's minus 550. I can understand why. She's going to be the much better striker. She's probably the better grappler too. Like, I don't think Brogan Walker's going to go in there and take her down. So I think she's probably got her covered in every aspect. So Veronica Hardy it is for me. The only real worry would be is she kind of fights a little bit too calculated at sometimes, and maybe she just barely squeaks out rounds by doing a little bit more, and then it's kind of sweaty. But I do think she gets the win here. Give me Veronica Hardy for the early pick. Moving on to some welterweights here. We got Austin Vanderford coming in a minus 240 favorite, taking on Ramiz Brahimaj, who just cashed as a big underdog as well against Billy Ray Goff with another submission victory. He's 11-0 to the submission, 1-0 to the KO, all wins by finish, but he's never won a decision. And on the other hand, Austin Vanderford never lost a decision. So kind of a very big clash of styles here. We got a guy that always going for the finish, but doesn't really win a ton of minutes. And then we got a guy that's more of a minute winner, but isn't always getting the finish. And considering Austin Vanderford was an underdog in his UFC debut, I thought that was a bit crazy going up against Nikolai Veretennikov, who we're going to talk about later. So I bet on him there, and now that he's a minus 240 favorite, I'm like, that's a bit rich, man. Because Vanderford had a nice Bellator run, but then he took some losses, and he wasn't very active, and then he kind of just decided, you know what, I'm going to fight again. I'm gonna fight again. I'm going to go for it again. Got to win in the LFA. Got signed to the UFC on short notice to take a short notice fight, and he gets a win, but he's 35. I'm not really like looking at him as a guy that's going to make a ton of noise in the UFC. He'll probably have some decent fights, but Ramiz Brahimaj is 32. He's kind of got some good momentum coming into this one, and Brahimaj's downfall has ultimately been him getting out-wrestled and not getting the submission. So when guys can wrestle him and put him on his back and stay safe from the submissions, he loses, or he gasses out and he loses. And some of his wins aren't exactly the highest level. Most of them are not really the highest level when we're talking about his wins in the UFC. Billy Ray Goff, we don't know how good he is, really. Mickey Gall, never been that great. Sasha Palatnikov, like, these are just lower level wins, but I don't really think Brahimaj is out of this fight by any means. I think Brahimaj is probably going to be super live for a finish early. If he can, hit the chin of Vanderford, he could probably hurt him. If Vanderford's going to be shooting a bunch of takedowns like he normally does, then that gives Brahimaj a chance to lock up some submissions. So, I'm going to lean towards the underdog here in Brahimaj, considering where the line is. Plus 205 is looking pretty tempting. Looking pretty tempting for a 35-year-old guy who's 1-0 in the UFC. I don't think is super serious about his career either. His wife is Paige Van Zandt. Paige Van Zandt makes a ton of money doing what she does online. If you know, you know. So I don't really think this guy needs to go out there and get wins. I think Brahimaj kind of needs to get wins. So I'm going to lean towards Brahimaj here as the underdog at plus 205. Moving on to more welterweights. Nikolai Veretennikov, who I just mentioned, comes in as the underdog at plus 185, taking on Punahele Soriano at minus 220. Puna moving down to 170. Looked like that was a great move for him. He looks in better shape. He looks lean. He looks fast, still powerful. Good move for Puna. Veretennikov, on the other hand, coming off a win against Francisco Prado, where I think it was a 30-27, might have been a 29-28. It was a relatively close fight, but I think Veretennikov really just didn't, I don't want to say he didn't do the right things to give himself the victory, but I think he could have made it a little bit easier. He was way bigger than Prado. He was kind of outstriking Prado. Prado was making a bunch of mistakes, and Veretennikov was capitalizing, but then also making mistakes as well. So there's still a lot that I don't like with Veretennikov. He's not a bad fighter, though. Decent kickboxer, kind of slow. Wrestling is okay. Just kind of like a meh fighter. If I'm looking at upside in this fight, I think there's probably more upside that Punahele Soriano finishes the fight with like some type of big left hand or something like that. But also with Puna, his cardio has never been that great. Since he moved down to 170, though, it's looked a little bit better. And I do think Puna's wrestling has looked good at 170 as well. He's a lot bigger than these guys. He's stronger. He can get into the clinch and bully you there. As long as his cardio holds up, I think he'll be okay, because I don't think Veretennikov's going to finish him. I think Puna's probably a better minute winner, honestly, in this one, because I don't really think Veretennikov's a great minute winner. I'm gonna lean towards Punahele Soriano to get this one done. Minus 220 is a little bit rich, though, I would say. I would put him more like a minus 180. Doesn't mean I'm really interested in the Veretennikov side, but minus 220 on Puna has always stood out to me because he can be a little bit inconsistent as well. But I'm going to lean his way either way. Give me Punahele Soriano for the early pick. To the bantamweights. Patchy Mix, not on the main card anymore. You're down on the prelims after that UFC debut. He sits at minus 240, though. The books are not ready to write him off, and he's getting a UFC debuter here in Jakub Wiklacz. I think that's how you say it. I really have no idea how to say it, but that's based on how I look at it. That's how I would pronounce it. But I do know his first name is pronounced Jakub. Pretty sure. He sits at plus 205. Making his UFC debut. He's had a ton of fights in KSW. Polish guy. Trains with Mateusz Gamrot and the other Polish guy that just came into the UFC and fought William Gomi. I forget his name. Robert Rushala. That's who it is. And when I was looking at his record, I watched a couple of his fights because I wasn't super, familiar with him. So I wanted to at least have a little bit of film to go off of to see how he fights. And he's got a ton of submissions, obviously, 10-1 to the submission. But if you look through his record, he's literally fought the same guy 5 times. 5 times. It's not like this guy is a bum that he's fought 5 times. Like, he actually lost once. He got knocked out by this guy one time. He beat him 3 times, and then they went to a technical draw because Jakub kicked him in the face when he was a grounded opponent, and they had to stop the fight. But it was like in the 4th round, so they went to a decision. The dude's fought that guy 5 times. That's insane. I don't think I've ever seen that. So very weird there, but I guess that must be like a big rivalry they have in KSW. I think they fought in ACB a while back as well. But that was something that I thought was pretty interesting. How this guy fights, though, I think he needs to grapple to have success. But he's not like a terrible striker. He's kind of a guy that will, kind of like a regular KSW guy, kind of a guy that's just going to throw hard and put a lot of pressure on you. And he's going to rely on his durability. He's not afraid to take a shot, but he can be hurt, but he will recover. He's been knocked out a couple times, but he's never had a knockout in his professional MMA career. So once he does get you on the ground, though, he's a finisher on the ground. He hasn't exactly gotten a ton of submission wins, in his recent career. I think he's gotten like 1 or 2 in his last 5 or 6 fights. So it's not like he's going out there insta-subbing everybody, but he wants to get you to the ground. He wants to beat you with his grappling. That's going to be tough here. It's going to be tough because Patchy Mix is a really good grappler. And obviously we didn't see that in his UFC debut against Mario Batista. Mario Batista was just able to stick and move and had pretty much the perfect game plan to beat Patchy Mix. And he has the style to do it. He's very fast. He can throw a lot of volume, and he's got infinite cardio. I'm interested to see how this fight plays out because I think both guys generally need to grapple to have success. I think Patchy might be, as crazy as it is to say, after watching his last fight, I think Patchy might be the better striker in the matchup. I think he might. There was also some stuff with Patchy Mix, injuries or just not being at full 100% when he fought Mario Batista, but he took the fight to get in the UFC and have that opportunity. So this could be a nice bounce back spot for Patchy, but I'm not playing him at minus 240. I can tell you that. I'm going to take him for the early pick here, though, because I think if Jakob looks to grapple, he's going to be in trouble. I don't think he's the better grappler than Patchy Mix, but on the feet, it could be competitive. We'll see. I don't think Patchy's like a big knockout puncher, but he does have some nice knees, got some nice elbows. And I think it probably just plays out in the grappling. I think Patchy's the better grappler. So give me Patchy for the early pick. Interesting matchup, though. I think it's a fun one for Patchy, to have a guy that's going to grapple him as well. All right, so we got some women's bantamweights now. We go from the men's bantamweight to the women's. We got Macy Chiasson taking on Yana Santos, who's 2-3 in her last 5, but on a 2-fight winning streak. And I can't really say she's looked bad, man. She's actually looked really good. She had the baby, and then she lost a couple fights when she came back to fight. And now she just looks like she's in insane shape. And she's putting together a couple of wins. So even at 35 years of age with a kid, she's looking okay. She looks like she's in a decent form to get wins at the UFC level. Macy Chiasson, on the other hand, I can't really say she blew me away with her last performance. But she is always going to be a tough out because she's huge for the weight class. She's a decent striker, decent grappler. But I don't know that, she's going to have a lot of success taking Yana down. Yana's a girl that kind of just overwhelms you with footwork, movement, volume, cage push. I don't want to say she's like avoiding a fight, but she's very good at like avoiding a scrap, but winning at the same time because she's been knocked out a couple times. So, I mean, she's felt the downside of going into a fight and getting hit with a shot and getting knocked out. She's felt that. Now in her later years, it seems like she's getting a little bit more wise, where she wants to stay to the outside, throw a bunch of kicks, a solid kickboxer, doesn't really engage a ton in the, pocket exchanges. She's not going to stay in the pocket. And then when you are in the pocket and she feels a little bit too close, she's just going to clinch you, or knee you in the clinch, elbow you in the clinch, put you up against the cage. So she's kind of got a style that has worked well for her. Is it going to work well here against Macy Chiasson? We'll see. I think it could. I honestly think it could, but I don't really have a ton of confidence in it because I think it's kind of a thin margin type of fight. I do think if Chiasson can get her to the ground, she's probably going to be heavy on top. I think she's probably going to be able to win minutes on top as well. On the feet, she probably got the better boxing, but I don't think Yana's going to be there. I'm going to lean towards the underdog here in Yana Santos, man. I'm going to lean towards her here at plus 184. I just think it's a close fight right now. Maybe if I go and watch some tape, I would think differently, but it seems like she's got the style, or at least a style, to be able to beat Macy Chiasson. We'll see, but I'll lean towards her for now. Featherweights here, we got a great fight. When I saw this matchup, I was like, yeah, I like this. I like this. Daniel Santos comes in at minus 135, taking up Ju Sang Yu. So Daniel Santos is now moving up to 145. He was trying to make 135 for a while. He fought his last fight at 145, Pretty clear that the guy should be able to make 135, but he's just willing to fight at 145 because he's not going to cut the weight, and he will go in there with extra cardio, and that's kind of what he needs. He's a guy that wants to put a lot of pace on you, put a lot of pressure, and I think, that could work out well here against Ju Sang-Yu. We don't really know too much about Ju Sang-Yu at the UFC level. His UFC debut, knocked the dude out. Jack Kasaragi, who's an absolute bum, knocked the dude out in, less than a minute. So we didn't really get to see much of him. I wish we saw more. But he's an interesting prospect because looks like he's got some solid striking. Looks like his grappling doesn't look that bad if you watch his later film. So he's very interesting. The thing with Daniel Santos is he's just such a dog. Shoot the box guy. He's like the featherweight Charles Oliveira. Going to go in there, take your shots, forward pressure, throw a ton of volume at you. He's just a dog in there. Just a dog. Kind of like an Elvis Brenner too, but I actually think he might be a little bit sharper with his technique. I'm going to lean towards Daniel Santos here just because I've seen it at the UFC level. I'm going to go back and watch some more Ju Sang-Yu film just to kind of see, how he would deal with a guy that's pressuring him. Maybe if I go back and watch the film and there's nothing there of a guy pressuring him, and then it's going to be tough to find out. But I think Daniel Santos' pressure, cardio, UFC experience, durability, I think he could probably get it done here. So I'm going to take Daniel Santos for the early pick, but sick fight. Loved it when I saw it, and hopefully it turns out to be a good one. More bantamweights. We got Farid Basharat taking on Chris Gutierrez. Farid, still undefeated. Definitely the better Basharat bro. And I think him against Chris Gutierrez is a solid fight because Chris Gutierrez is, I don't want to say a gatekeeper, but he's kind of a gatekeeper, man. Kind of a gatekeeper to the top 15. If you can beat Chris Gutierrez, it's like, okay, you could probably get a ranked opponent your next time out, or a guy that's right on the edge of the rankings. So it's a good test for Farid, and I think Farid's probably going to pass it because Gutierrez, nasty leg kicker, great footwork, decent hands, decent timing with his hands. Not really a guy that wants to hang out in the pocket, but he can time his punches right, and they can be effective. Decent knees up the middle as well. Well-timed. Just a solid striker off the back foot. Not the best grappler defensively, not the best grappler offensively. And I think that's probably where Farid is going to take this fight. I think he's probably going to be pushing forward. He's a guy that usually comes in with a decent game plan. Push forward. Well, he's going to be fast from the outside as well. But I think in this matchup, he's going to be maybe trying to pull Chris in so that he's a little bit off balance and then look for the takedowns. And I think it's probably just going to be a lot of takedowns from Basharat because I think Basharat's a damn good wrestler, damn good grappler, and I think he's probably levels above Chris Gutierrez. Not that Gutierrez is terrible, but I just don't really think he does well against guys that can take him down. Seems like he's a little bit more gun-shy. He's a guy that relies on throwing a lot of kicks, and when you throw a lot of kicks, you're usually off balance, and usually it's easier to take you down, or you might just fall on your butt from throwing a kick and being off balance. So there's just a lot of reasons why I think Basharat's going to win this fight on the ground. I'm going to take Basharat for the early pick here. Middleweights, we got Edmund Shahbazyan taking on Andre Muniz. When I saw this matchup, I was like, okay, it's an interesting matchup because Muniz is a good grappler, especially when he gets the fight to the ground. And he's a big dude for the weight class, but he's a terrible striker. Terrible striker, and he's been knocked out 6 times. Terrible striker, and he's been knocked out 6 times, man. And Edmund Shahbazyan is a motherfucker on the feet. Now, the thing is with Edmund, I wasn't really impressed with his last fight against Prochazka because I thought he would go in there and take his head off. But Prochazka didn't really fight him. So I can't really knock him too much for not knocking him out. But I do think if he did go for it, he probably could have finished him. But he would also open himself up to getting taken down. In this matchup, I could see it's kind of like the same way. It's really the same way. It's the same matchup, honestly. When I look at Shahbazyan versus Prochazka and Shahbazyan versus Muniz. Now, the thing is, Muniz has been knocked out more. He's older. He doesn't have any type of momentum coming into this fight. I'm pretty sure he got fluke knocked out against Ikram Alaskarov in his last fight. So that chin, it didn't even look like the punch hit him that hard, and he got knocked out from it. So if that's knocking you out, I don't really think your chin is going to be much better going into your next fight, and I think Shahbazyan probably knocks him out. So give me Shahbazyan here. I think his power and his speed is just going to be too much for Muniz early. I think he probably finishes him early. So give me Shahbazyan for the early pick here, and I think he gets it done early on. All right, featured prelim of the night, and this is very telling because we got Ozzy Diaz in a feature prelim. Nobody's caring about that. But then we got a Teba Gautier as a feature prelim, and that's the reason this is right now scheduled for the feature prelim. When I'm saying feature prelim, I mean, if you're not familiar with it, feature prelim's the fight right before the main card of a pay-per-view. So everyone's tuning in, waiting for the main card of the pay-per-view. And if they're watching the UFC, this is the fight they're going to see before the main card. So they want it to be exciting, and they want to see a knockout so that people will buy the pay-per-view. So they set this one up to where they have a Teba Gautier, the scariest mini Ngannou you've ever seen. It's honestly an insult to call this guy a mini Ngannou because, yeah, he's not a heavyweight, but he's fucking huge. 6'4", 81-inch reach. He's knocking out everybody. And I think he knocks out Ozzy Diaz relatively easily because Ozzy Diaz has been knocked out 3 times. He's been knocked out by big power punchers. Big power punchers are definitely his weakness because he's the guy that kind of has to walk into the pocket and then kind of take over as the fight goes on. Joe Pyfer knocked him out. Meng Yang Zhang knocked him out. I think Teba Gautier is going to knock him out. I think it's about as easy of a breakdown as it can get. Gautier is 23. They clearly see something with this guy. How could you not? And Ozzy Diaz is 34. And he's 1-1 in the UFC. His only win is against Jordan Santos. And it was a close fight. I'll tell you, Gautier, KO1, easy. There's your pick. Not even going to watch film on it. To be honest, I'm probably not. This is just this is a squash match. It's a squash match. Gautier, KO, easy. All right, before we get into the main card, I want to remind you, if you want all the bets, jump in the Home of Fight Picks Premium membership. Use code HeyDrive, get you a 5-day free trial. We're positive 73.31 units on the year. Let's get to that 100-unit mark like we did last year. And this is the results from the past, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The last 9 UFC cards, we've profited 8 of them. And we don't have results for UFC Perth because I'm recording this before UFC Perth, so I can post it after. And over those 9 UFC cards, we're positive 27.55 units. So we've been on a nice run, a real nice run. And I think we're going to cash in nicely at UFC Perth so we can make that 9 of the last 10. And then we can roll that into UFC 320 and we can make even more money. So we want all the bets. Link down in the description below. Join the Home of Fight Picks Premium membership. That's where you're going to get all my bets. And that's where you're going to get the DFS plays early in the week as well. Sent to your phone via text message. And if you need a sports book, hop on Wager Attack. It's available in all 50 states. You get a 200% free play bonus and a 10% cash bonus on crypto. You deposit $100, you're going to get $200 of free play. You're going to get $10 added to your cash bonus if you use crypto. Link down in the description below. Let's go to the main card. Joe Pyfer taking on Abus Magomedov. I love this fight. I really do. Because I think Abus is like a sneaky good fighter. Everyone, thinks the guy's shit because he lost to Sean Strickland. But it's fucking Sean Strickland, dude. And Sean Strickland went on to win the title after that fight. So, I mean, yeah, he's taken his losses. He's lost to Kyle Bahalio, lost to Sean Strickland, but he's picked up some nice wins, man. And his wins are generally clean. He's kind of dominated some of these guys. Beat Michel Pereira's last time out as an underdog. He's an underdog again here against Joe Pyfer. And I like Joe Pyfer as well. I think I like both guys. I think both guys are a force to deal with. I think they're very tough to have dominant performances against unless they're going to gas out like Joe Pyfer did, like Abus Magomedov did. So let's talk about the fight. I think Abus is the cleaner kickboxer. But I think Joe Pyfer definitely hits harder with his hands. I think he's probably more durable than Abus as well. I think Joe Pyfer has a lot of potential to knock out Abus in this fight if he can connect clean. My problem with Joe Pyfer at times is that he's a little bit of a perfectionist. He doesn't exactly go for it on some occasions. He will be standing waiting for the perfect opportunity, and sometimes that perfect opportunity does arise and he's able to take advantage of it, whether it's getting a knockdown or landing the knockout. Grappling wise, I think it's relatively similar. I think Abus might have the better chain wrestling as far as sticking to a guy, whether, it's taking him down, they're getting back up. he's still got a hold of you. He's dragging you back down. I think Joe Pyfer might have the better athleticism when it comes to just getting a guy down. Just get the guy down. I think Pyfer might have the better blast double. I think he might have the better submission package. He might be the stronger guy on top. But I think Abus's chain wrestling might be a little bit better. So I think just very two different ways of wrestling in MMA. I tend to lean towards Abus at plus 180. But the thing is, like I said at the beginning of the breakdown, I kind of think if Pyfer lands that shot, it could be it. Because Abus at times has shown not the best chin. Not the best chin. And it hasn't really, came to light in his past couple fights. But we'll see if it does this one. And if there's anybody where those chin concerns could come back to haunt you, it's against a guy like Joe Pyfer. So I'm going to lean towards Magomedov at plus 180, just considering the odds. I think, Pyfer should be maybe minus 150. But I think Abus could get knocked out. I'm going to lean towards his way, though, right now. I'm going to go back and watch some film. We'll see how it works out. But I'm going to lean towards Abus as a plus 180. It's a big number. All right, featherweights. We got Youssef Zalal taking on Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett coming in here, 40 years of age, 11 years older than the 29-year-old Youssef Zalal. Youssef has been very dominant in his in his second stint in the UFC. Finished everybody except his last time out against Calvin Kattar, where he was running for his life in that fight. And actually met Youssef Zalal in UFC Atlanta. And he was the nicest dude. Super fun dude. I got a picture with him as well. And I was like, dude, I definitely did not like your last fight, but I respect it because you went in there and got the win. You got the win. You won the first 2 rounds cleanly. Round 3, you're just trying to secure the win. Calvin Kattar was going for broke, and Youssef Zalal was running. In this matchup, obviously, I think the problem of getting hit for Youssef Zalal in this matchup is a little bit more devastating than it is against Calvin Kattar. Not to say Calvin Kattar has pillow fists, but we know Josh Emmett has one-shot knockout power. Now, is that a little bit overblown at times? I think so. I think that's really just because he's had some nasty, one-shot KOs. But it's not like every time that this guy lands, he's knocking you out. And Youssef Zalal has pretty much made his career fighting off the back foot and avoiding big power punches with his footwork, with his slickness, and with his activity on the feet. It doesn't really allow guys to set up big shots because he's always moving. He's always sticking you with a jab and getting out of the way, circling off. And I think in the big cage here, he's probably going to do the same thing, man. I think he's probably just going to win this fight by decision. Maybe he could submit him. I highly doubt it. Highly doubt it. I think it's probably a decision victory for Youssef Zalal. He goes in there, sticks and moves, does what he does, and wins a 29-28, maybe a 30-27 decision victory. But, if Josh Emmett comes out here like he did against Ilia Topuria in that 4th round where he was just throwing everything at him because he knew he was down 3 rounds to nothing, or maybe it was the 5th round, I forget. But if he comes out there doing that, maybe Youssef Zalal gets a little bit tired. But he's just never really gotten tired, honestly. He's got great cardio as well. So, I think Youssef Zalal gets this one done by decision. I'm going to take him for the early pick. All right, featured bout of the night. We got light heavyweight division. Khalil Rountree Jr. coming in at plus 150. Yuri Prochazka in his, 38th professional fight. Damn. Yuri, minus 175, comes in here off the nice victory his last time out. And I think Khalil Rountree could be live here as an underdog. But when I look at this one, I think Khalil Rountree had a nice performance against Jamal. But, Jamal's not exactly looking that great. If you've seen any recent videos of him with Poatan, the dude looks fucking big. He looks like he's getting to the DC level of, belly. So Jamal's not exactly looking the best. Jamal's injuries, I think, have plagued him. And Khalil's just clearly the better striker, the faster striker. He had a great game plan in that fight as well. And he stuck to it, and he paced himself for the 5-round fight, won the fight by decision. So that's a good moment to see, or at least a good fight to see from Khalil, where, he fought Pereira. He went for it early, didn't get it, gassed out, lost the fight by 4th round TKO. Then in his next fight against a lesser of opponent, paces himself, goes 5 rounds, wins the fight cleanly. But in this one, it's 3 rounds, I believe. I'm pretty sure it's 3 rounds. It's 3 rounds, so that might favor Khalil. But the thing with Yuri is he pushes such a heavy pace that even in a 3-round fight, he can break you. He can break you late in round 2, in round 3. And I think that's probably what happens, man, if it makes it that far. I think Khalil has a good chance to knock him out early because Yuri's striking defense has never been good. It's been getting better. I have to say that. It's been getting better. And he's going to be fighting a much smaller guy. So maybe it's going to be easier to get away, from those punches. But Khalil commits to his punches. So, just getting your head out of the way a little bit might turn into getting hit. It's an interesting one, man. I think Yuri has a lot of finishing upside late. You could also finish him early. I think Khalil's got to get it done in the first 7.5 minutes. I'll just say that because I think the pace that Yuri sets is probably going to fatigue Khalil a lot and not allow him to be so technical like he was against Jamal Hill. So I'm going to lean towards Yuri here. The guy that is bigger, he throws a ton of volume. Striking defense isn't great, but I think he has the power to knock out Khalil early. I think he's got the power to knock him out late, and I think over the course of 15 minutes, he probably does the better work. But like I said, Khalil could definitely knock him out in the first 7.5 minutes. I'm going to lean towards Yuri here for the pick, but great fight. Love it. Bantamweight Championship of the World in the co-main event. We got Murad Dvalishvili coming off a finish victory his last time out, taking on Corey Sandhagen, also coming off a finish via knee injury against Deiveson Figueiredo. Now, 4-1 in the last 5 for Corey. The lone loss was to Umar Nurmagomedov, which was a 50-45 loss. Was it 50-45, 49-46? It was, it wasn't a blowout because every round was close, but I'm pretty sure Umar just stole every round with a takedown late in the round. The thing I don't like with Corey Sandhagen, he's just a bit of a perfectionist at times as well. And if you come in here trying to be a perfectionist against Merab, it's not going to go well. It's not going to go well because to beat Merab, you have to knock him out, number one. Maybe you could win a decision, but you have to have elite cardio. Corey Sandhagen usually has really good cardio, so that's great. Corey Sandhagen also has different weapons that he could knock him out with. And number 3, you got to have wrestling to where he can't hold you down on the ground. The line looks a little bit wide, honestly. I think Corey at plus 285 is kind of tempting because Corey's a great overall fighter. Good wrestling, good scrambles, good striking, great cardio, solid durability. But Merab is just a fucking animal, man. Who beats Merab? If there's anybody that could beat Merab, I would have thought it would be Umar Nurmagomedov. And I honestly still think if you put Umar in that fight and he doesn't break his hand early, I think he could beat him. It would be close, but I think he could beat him. Can Corey Sandhagen do what Umar did and win the first 3 rounds and then stay alive for the next 2? Because it's not like Merab's going in there knocking people out. Yes, he got a submission win his last time out, but Sean O'Malley looked terrible in that fight, for one. Didn't make any adjustments and actually made adjustments to make the fight worse on him. Maybe that was, Merab looking better, making offensive adjustments to be more dominant in that spot. But I think Corey has a chance here. I do think it probably goes to decision. I think it could be a 48-47 either way or a 49-46 for Merab. But I would struggle to see how Corey, would dominate this fight unless he knocks him out. I don't really see that happening either, just because Merab's got a fucking huge head, and I think he's literally too dumb to get knocked out. I don't understand it. It honestly seems like he's there's nothing there, so there's nothing that can hurt him in his head. He's just a wild animal. I'm going to take Merab for the pick because I think he probably wins, but I do think the line is wide. I think Corey Sandhagen at plus 285, plus 300, it might be worth a stab, man. It might be worth a stab because if it goes to decision, it could be close, but give me Merab for the pick. All right, the main event brings us to it. We got the light heavyweight championship, the rematch. Now, I had Ankalaev in the first fight as the underdog. I played him, I think, at plus 105, plus 110 against Pereira in the first fight. And I thought that was just, kind of ridiculous because all the grappling upside would come from Ankalaev. Ankalaev's a solid striker. He'd never been knocked out. So it made sense. It made sense to play Ankalaev in that spot against Pereira, who had also been extremely active, had a ton of fights in a row. Now, that fight was, what was that fight? March? I think the fight was March. So now we're, 6-7 months later, and they rematch. So they've had some time off, which is good for both guys. Ankalaev now coming in at -210. It's a bit rich. It's a bit rich because when I watched that first fight, I thought Ankalaev won. But I wasn't super impressed with how he won. He was able to win the fight based on, he did outstrike him in some moments, but he never got him down. The one round, I think it was round 4 that he won, it was a lot of cage push. A lot of cage push. Not a lot happened. And Pereira did land some nice shots as well. Now, in this one, can Ankalaev make some adjustments to get those takedowns, to not get hit with as many calf kicks? Not that the calf kicks really did a ton, for Pereira to win that fight, but I think Pereira went into that fight relying on the calf kick. He was like, I am going to kick your calf, and you're going to be hurt by it, and then I'm going to take over. And as the fight progressed, the calf kick did not take over because it wasn't as effective, and he was so adamant about throwing it, he didn't throw his hands as much, and he was also off balance a ton, and Ankalaev was able to take advantage of it. There's a lot of adjustments I could see in this fight, and after the fight, I was thinking to myself, if Pereira makes some adjustments, he could definitely win the fight. If he just did a little bit more, I thought he could have won the fight. But he didn't win the fight. And now Ankalaev could also make adjustments. So rematches are tough, in my opinion. But considering where the odds are at, I played Ankalaev as the underdog at +110 in the first fight because I thought he should have been a slight favorite. Alex Pereira at +180 now. If he can make those adjustments that I thought he was lacking in the first fight, at +180 is very tempting because I think, Ankalaev maybe -150. Maybe that sounds about right. But -210 seems a bit wide. So I'm going to lean towards Alex Pereira here for the early lean just based on the betting odds. If you understand that, you understand that. If you don't, then you can comment whatever bullshit you want to comment. But based on the betting odds, I think that's a little bit wide considering where we got it at the first time. And I think it could be a little bit of an overcorrection for a fight that played out very closely. Maybe Ankalaev can make some adjustments and be more dominant, or maybe Pereira can make some adjustments and win the fight. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. And considering we're getting a +180 price tag on Alex Pereira, I'm gonna lean towards Pereira in this one as the underdog. That's gonna do it. Appreciate you for watching. Like the video for me before you go. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. And we'll be back here throughout the week with more content. Appreciate y'all. Till next time. Hey Job Picks. We out.